एक Hello, hello everybody. So we are meeting for the first time today, and I'm pretty confident कि इतनी अच्छी फिजिक्स की और सब्जेक्ट ग्लैमरस पढ़ाया मैम ने बहुत अच्छा, तो आई एम प्रीटी श्योर कि यू वुड लाइक टू हैव कि अंग्रेजी लिटरेचर कौन पढ़े, बट आई एम प्रीटी कॉन्फिडेंट जो मेरा भी अनुभव है कि अंग्रेजी में भी 100 नंबर लाए जा सकते हैं। लिटरेचर डेफिनेटली 100 नंबर लाए जा सकते हैं अगर आप कायदे से उसको पढ़ें डिटेल में। अक्सर ऐसा होता है कि जब बच्चे जो है वो अंग्रेजी इज अ लेस ग्लैमरस सब्जेक्ट कंपेयर टू फिजिक्स केमिस्ट्री मैथ्स और इवन बायोलॉजी, तो बच्चे कहते हैं क्या पढ़ना अंग्रेजी में, अंग्रेजी तो कर लेंगे, अंग्रेजी तो सबको आती है। पर एक्चुअली क्या होता है कि जब अंग्रेजी हम सॉल्व करने बैठते हैं पेपर, तो पता चलता है कि अंग्रेजी इज नॉट व्हाट व्हाट्सएप टीचर्स अस। अंग्रेजी इज समथिंग which needs is as difficult as mathematics and physics, because mathematics and physics में जिस तरह से आपको फॉर्मूली याद करने पड़ते हैं, फॉर्मूली बेस्ड क्वेश्चंस होते हैं, वैसे ही अंग्रेजी में भी रूल्स होते हैं। देयर आर सर्टेन रूल्स विच वी नीड टू लर्न एंड फॉलो। और होता क्या है कि ना टीचर्स इंटरेस्ट दिखाते हैं और ना बच्चों को इंटरेस्ट आता है। सो आई ट्राई टू मेक बोथ इंग्लिश लैंग्वेज एंड लिटरेचर as easy, as interesting as possible. So, before I embark on this beautiful journey of English literature, which I have thought of to start with, I would like to introduce myself briefly. I've been teaching for last 30 years in Lucknow in a mission school, and enjoying interacting with all those lovely young minds who are so good and so vibrant that they teach me many things which I may not have learned during my studying years when I was young. So with this, I'd like to start a very easy poem, which everybody feels it's very easy, but there are certain nuances, certain basic things which you I would like to tell you, which you may not know. The poem to start with is Daffodils. We will look at the poem which is Daffodils. Daffodils is the poem by William Wordsworth. William Wordsworth, you know, is a poet of nature. He has written a lot of poems on nature itself. So this poem Daffodils, ये भी एक बहुत ही अजीब सा था कि his brother has died. उसके भाई की डेथ हो गई थी and he was just meandering, just loitering around on the hills with his sister Dorothy when he came across the this beautiful scene called Daffodils. It. I have taken this picture because you should get the brief idea of how the daffodils would have been found along the margins of the bay, right? So daffodils उनको बहुत अच्छा लगा and he wrote this poem called Daffodils. So daffodils जो है हम पहला स्टैंजा से ही शुरू करेंगे कि पहला स्टैंजा कहता है I wandered lonely as a cloud. In the first line itself, he introduces a poetic device called simile. He is comparing himself here in the first line itself to a cloud. आपने देखा होगा जैसे बादल जो है इधर उधर मंडराते रहते हैं, भटकते रहते हैं बिना किसी कारण के। उसी तरह ही सेज आई वॉन्डर्ड लोनली एज अ क्लाउड, हम एक क्लाउड की तरह वाज वॉन्डरिंग, meandering here and there, just doing nothing. When I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills. So I could see some lovely comments from you all. Aditi, hello, how are you? I hope you're fine. Forgotten FF, hello. Akhand Bharat, I'll be reading your uh, comments also, so that please keep on commenting so that I also get the feedback how you are grasping it or not, and what else I can do. And interaction is very important. Otherwise, it becomes a monologue, right? So soulful fitness wife, अरे अंग्रेजी हम आपकी सही करवा देंगे बिल्कुल. डोंट वरी अबाउट इट. यू जस्ट फोकस ऑन व्हाट आई से एंड डू इट प्लीज. राइट. चलो आई मूव ऑन. आई वॉन्डर्ड लोनली एज अ क्लाउड. He is comparing himself to a cloud who meanders aimlessly here and there, since he was also meandering aimlessly. She says, I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills. Vales is valleys and hills. He was just a cloud which is floating over valleys and hills. He was also floating here and there. When all at once I saw a crowd. Why crowd? Why crowd, he says? Because he says, all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Why crowd? Because they were in such a large numbers that it appeared to him as a crowd, right? Then he says a host of golden daffodils. Why a host? Why a host? It's a question which can be asked in MCQs. So the hosts are basically, he reveals that one, there are two reasons for it. One, they are in large numbers. Second, he feels that they are before him present there. तो पहले चूंकि वो present थी वहां पर, इसलिए he calls them a host. Please remember this. This poem appears to be very, very innocuous, but this poem is very, very important and easy also. But you may take something, some learning on it. So you look at it. He says, I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Now host is clear. Now where were they? Beside the lake, beneath the tree. Beside the lake, beneath the tree. The poem was beside the lake, beneath the tree, and he says fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Beside the, कहाँ पर थी वो? Beside the lake and beneath the tree. Fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Fluttering and dancing in the breeze is a personification. Fluttering and dancing with the breeze is personification. Craft with Shambhavi. Here, fluttering and dancing in the breeze is personification. Why? Because it is one of the attributes of human beings. So it's a personification. You must pay attention to all the poetic devices taught in this poem, because that can form a basic important question of 3 to 4 marks. So I repeat once again, I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Second question, where were they? Beside the lake, beneath the tree, and what they were doing? Fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Fluttering and dancing in the breeze is personification. You need to know this poetic device, which is very, very important. Now, if this is clear, we move on to the second stanza. Second stanza is continuous as the stars they shine. अब अगर if during night हम ऊपर आसमान में देखते हैं, तो हम जहां तक भी देखते हैं वहां पर हमें क्या दिखाई पड़ते हैं? मिल्की वे दिखता है, तारे दिखाई पड़ते हैं. तो similarly here again he is comparing those daffodils with the stars shining in the Milky Way. He says continuous as the stars they shine. This is simile. Please note this. Poetic devices are very, very important. I'll reiterate once again. ठीक है? Continuous as the stars they shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line. Now, Crat with Shambhavi, here they stretched in never-ending ending line can be hyperbole, because he sees as far as he could see. He could see just daffodils, daffodils, and daffodils. So this can be hyperbole also. So you must remember this. Continuous as the stars they shine is simile, and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line is hyperbole along the margins of the bay. अगर आपसे क्वेश्चन पूछा जाता है, where were daffodils? Beside the lake, beneath the tree, and you will have to add into that along the margins of the bay. Right? Now, moving ahead, 10,000 saw at a glance. 10,000 saw at a glance is again hyperbole. Please don't call it hyperbole, bola, bole, boli, because it's a mispronunciation. It should be pronounced as hyperbole. Why it's a hyperbole? Because at a glance, one cannot be sure about the number. Here, the poet expresses the exact number, that is 10,000, which is not possible to be sure about at a glance. You can take a machine or a human being to count and then find out. It can be more or less. So this is a hyperbole. 10,000 saw at a glance, and what they were doing? Tossing their heads in sprightly dance, as if polka dance kar rahi ho. They're fluttering in the wave and dancing like a polka dance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. Again is personification. I am again reiterating, please pay attention to the poetic devices used in this poem, because those are important. Right? Now, moving on to the third stanza. Third stanza says, the waves besides them. अब वहां पे एक डांस इंडिया डांस का कंपटीशन चल रहा था. पोएट कहता है कि दोनों ऐसा लग रहा था कि यहां पर पोल्का डांस हो रहा है डैफोडिल्स का, तो उधर वेव्स जो हैं वो हिप हॉप डांस कर रही हैं. ठीक है. व्हाट ही सेज इज द वेव्स बिसाइड देम डांस बट दे. अगेन द वेव्स बिसाइड देम डांस बट दे इज अगेन personification. The waves beside them dance, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. Outdid means outsmarted, defeated. Daffodils का डांस पोएट को वेव्स के डांस से ज्यादा अच्छा लगा. Why sparkling? Because the sun was shining and they were just sparkling. Waves in glee, happiness, right? Again, personification, waves in glee, happiness. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. A poet has no other option but to be happy and gay in such a jocund company. जोकंड जो है वो एक जॉक्युलर कंपनी की बात हो रही है. और अखंड भारत, मैं ये कहूंगा आपसे, जो पोएटिक डिवाइस में कंफ्यूजन होता है, इसका मैं अलग से एक, जितनी भी मेजर पोएटिक डिवाइसेस है 15-20, उसका एक्सप्लेनेशन के लिए मैं एक अलग से आपको वीडियो तैयार कर लूंगा. सो डोंट वरी अबाउट इट, है ना. इंस्टेड व्हाट आई वुड सजेस्ट इज you focus currently on this poem, which is very, very important, and we'll move on to the next topics and other things later. So now we continue with this. The waves beside them dance, but they outdid the dance sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. And the poet William Wordsworth was so mesmerized, he was so enamored by this beautiful sight, that he says, I gazed and gazed. Gazed and gazed has to be, maybe you call it repetition, some may call it alliteration also, but I'll suggest you call it repetition. Why? Because the word itself is repeated. So, yeah, jocund craft with Shamu, you're right. Jocund means cheerful, happy, jocular. You can gay, you can call anything. When it's a happy company. It gives you a positive vibe. That's what it means. Now, the last two lines basically are very, very important, because they talk about the utopian world. ये word याद रखिएगा, utopian, because कई बार ऐसा होता है कि word ऐसे आ जाते हैं और हम confuse हो जाते हैं और हमारा एक question गलत हो जाता है. Utopian means राम राज्य. राज्य, where the place where everything is beautiful, everything is nice, everything is wonderful. And in these last two lines, the poet wants to give a message that the materialistic world, the materialistic wealth, which we are craving for, which we run after, is generally not required. It वो खो सकती है, अर्न करनी पड़ेगी, स्टील होगी, बट दो ये नेचुरल वेल्थ है, नेचुरल वेल्थ जो है वो हमारे पास हमेशा रहती है, कभी खोती नहीं है. जब चाहो तब यूज कर लो, जब चाहो जहां उसको कैसे भी कर लो, एंड इट गिव्स यू लॉट ऑफ प्लेजर. दिस इज द मैसेज ऑफ द पोएम विच वी मस्ट रिमेंबर. आप लोग याद रखिएगा, क्योंकि पोएम बड़ी आसान दिखती है, पर ये क्वेश्चंस जो है कभी कभी हम लोग को तंग करेंगे. तो लास्ट टू लाइंस गिव द मैसेज ऑफ द पोएम. आई गेज्ड एंड गेज्ड बट लिटिल थॉट व्हाट वेल्थ दिस शो टू मी हैज ब्रॉट. जिस तरह का वेल्थ, जिस तरह की नेचुरल वेल्थ है, वो हमारे पास हमेशा रहेगी, कभी खर्च नहीं होगी, हम जब चाहें तब यूज कर सकते हैं. And you'll appreciate also that the first three stanzas, if you see, are all outdoors. और first three stanzas में भी अगर आप देखोगे तो टोन चेंज हो रही है. पहले टोन जो था वो सैड थी. Then the poem looks at these daffodils and becomes happy. And first three stanzas are outdoors. They happened at the same time. But the fourth stanza comes after a long time when poet is sitting very cozily in his bedroom or maybe drawing room when he thinks about those and he's alone and he thinks about those lovely sights which he had kept with himself in his memory, and then he writes, he says, for oft when on my couch I lie, couch is sofa cum bed, for oft when on my couch I lie. कई बार ऐसा होता है हम लोग जो है अकेले होते हैं, घर में एकांकी होते हैं और हम रेस्ट कर रहे होते हैं और हम कोई पुरानी यादें होती हैं, चाहे स्कूल की हो, चाहे कॉलेज की हो, चाहे बचपन की हो, और उनको याद करके हम जो है बहुत खुश हो जाते हैं. ऐसे ही पोएट कह रहा है, फॉर ऑफ्ट व्हेन ऑन माय काउच आई लाई इन वेकेंट और इन पेंसिव मूड. वेकेंट मींस डूइंग नथिंग, पेंसिव मूड मींस इन मेडिटेटिव प्रोसेस. थॉट प्रोसेस क्या है उसका, है ना, सोच रहा है कुछ. तो इन वेकेंट और इन पेंसिव मूड दे फ्लैश अपॉन द इनवर्ड आई. Inward eye here is a metaphor. Inward eye क्या है? Metaphor है. It's a metaphor for memory. He says, they flash upon the inward eye. Who are they? Daffodils. Daffodils की याद आती है उन्हें, and which is a bliss of solitude. He says, that is a bliss of solitude. Bliss माने happiness, solitude माने loneliness. Both are used together. People call it as onomatopoeia. कौन से फिगर ऑफ स्पीच है ये? ऑनोमेटोपिया. क्राफ्ट विद संभवी आपने कुछ दिन पहले यूज किया था, देर पहले. ऑनोमेटोपिया ये है ऑनोमेटोपिया, सॉरी ये है ऑक्सीमोरॉन. ये क्या है? ऑक्सीमोरॉन है. आई एम सॉरी, दिस इज ऑक्सीमोरॉन. व्हाई ऑक्सीमोरॉन? बिकॉज टू डिफरेंट साउंडिंग वर्ड्स are used together in a single sentence. But some of the researchers, they call it antithesis also. Why antithesis? So why antithesis? Because a preposition of is used in between this. So we need to be very very careful while answering this question. ये आपसे हमेशा पूछा जाएगा, what is a bliss of solitude? Bliss of solitude मतलब ये होता है इसका, let me explain to you in Hindi first. अकेले में जो चीज आपको आनंद दे उस आनंद को बोलते हैं ब्लिस. ब्लिस ऑफ सॉलिट्यूड मींस एनीथिंग व्हिच गिव्स यू प्लेजर व्हेन यू आर ऑल अलोन. नॉर्मली a person who is all alone is not supposed to be very happy, but these lovely memories which he has made during the time gone by gives him pleasure, so it becomes a bliss of solitude. अगर आपसे क्वेश्चन पूछा जाता है कि what is the poetic device, तो आप उसको बहुत ही स्मार्टली आंसर करोगे कि ब्लिस ऑफ सॉलिट्यूड इन माय ओपिनियन इज ऑक्सीमोरॉन. व्हाई? बिकॉज टू एग्जैक्टली ऑपोजिट मीनिंग वर्ड्स are used together in this sentence. But you will also mention that some researchers say it is an antithesis. Why antithesis? Because of is used in between that. And as a result of that, what happens is, the poet says, for oft when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And what happens then? And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. Again, the heart starts dancing with the daffodils. The poet, when he's alone, he's meditative, still he becomes very, very happy. This is all about daffodils. So, daffodils एक आसान पोएम लगती है, इसमें पोएटिक डिवाइसेस बहुत ज़्यादा हैं, मैसेज बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. टोन और मूड का मैंने आपको बताया कि इट कीप्स ऑन चेंजिंग फ्रॉम स्टैंजा टू स्टैंजा, विच यू नीड टू रिमेंबर while answering your questions. And don't take any poem or any story or any act for granted. Why? Because you know the pattern has changed. There'll be MCQs and anything can be asked here. So with this, I think
just give me a moment. Thank you, TR Rider. Adit is showing immense support to our channel, and he is sending some of his pocket money to us so that we can support this channel. हम लोग इस पे और grow कर सकें. And after this class, we'll be having next class would be of string. I'll be taking the live class of string. आज आपका संडे एकदम मस्त बना देंगे। आपने फिजिक्स पढ़ लिया, आपने इंग्लिश पढ़ लिया। अब आप लोग की डिमांड थी फिजिक्स क्लास में कि सर प्रतीक सर की क्लास कब आएगी, मैम प्रतीक सर की क्लास कब आएगी। तो आई विल बी टेकिंग द नेक्स्ट क्लास ऑफ स्ट्रिंग। स्ट्रिंग आपका बहुत ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक था, तो आई विल बी कमिंग। आप थोड़ा देर सर से और जो भी कंफ्यूजन हो, जो भी डाउट्स हो, उसको पूछ लीजिए। एंड आई एम वेरी कॉन्फिडेंट अबाउट दिस कि भाई आपके इंग्लिश का जो है अब आपको टेंशन लेने की जरूरत ही नहीं है। एज पर दी थंबनेल, एज पर दी टैगलाइन, डू नॉट फियर बिकॉज मृदुल सर इज हियर। फाइन, सो ऑल द बेस्ट। मिलते हैं हम लोग जल्दी स्ट्रिंग की क्लास में।
So I think this, as far as poetic devices are concerned, is very, very important. And you, if you have any question to ask, please ask me, or you can always leave your comments so that I can also understand that students have understood. And my again submission to you all is, as a tip, you can say, please don't take any subject for granted, because every subject will give you 100 marks. Nowadays, English literature and English language both fetch you 100 marks. Literature definitely 100 आते हैं लोगों के, और फिर आएंगे, आपके भी आएंगे। आप खाली फॉलो करते रहें whatever we are telling you about it. ठीक है? So with this I'll sign off and see you in my next class.